I turned 28 years old this week. So I've been investing my money for 10 years now and have already built up several €100,000 in assets. Today, I definitely want to share how I would invest with the knowledge I have now if I had to start from €0 again. And with that, welcome to Northern Finance. My name is Alex Bleck. Yes, building wealth is a wonderful thing, especially when you don't inherit it, but instead build it up through your own hard work over the years and finally see the mountain of wealth right in front of you. That's indeed the most obvious sign that you've done a lot of things right. And today, I definitely want to share 5 rules with you that will help you rock your first 10 years as an investor and give you a great kickstart in building your wealth. I personally did that too. And now I've tried to establish these 5 rules based on my own experiences over the past 10 years. Let's literally get right into rule number 1. Increase your risk tolerance. When I really look back personally, I honestly took too few risks at the beginning of my career as an investor at ING. The 20s are indeed a time in your life when you don't generally earn that much, to be quite honest, but you have considerably more free time. This is an immense advantage that most people only understand too late. Because if you take risks and, for example, not only invest in a year 70-30 world ETF portfolio, but also invest part of it in riskier things such as crypto, then you have a decisive advantage over other investors. Your risky investment has a very limited downside compared to investors with a family and a house that needs to be paid off, and therefore potentially more financial obligations. You can take significantly more risks without any problems because your investment horizon is simply much longer. And being afraid of risks at the beginning is, in my opinion, the biggest risk of all, because it simply takes away the return opportunities you need right at the start when you want to build a lot of wealth with relatively little. And you can't avoid risk anyway. Especially when times aren't so rosy, it makes even more sense to invest long-term through buy and hold and to consistently keep investing in your savings plan. And this applies not only to investing money, but also to life in general. At the time, I ultimately had the choice of working at the bank after graduating or doing Northern Finance full-time instead of just part-time. And you don't want to find yourself later asking, what if I had dared to take that step? I didn't want to blame myself for that, especially after I had worked at Northern Finance during my semester abroad in China and already had my first employee by the end of my studies. And I'm absolutely glad that I took the plunge into the deep end, so to speak. That's why always take calculated risks and don't be afraid to shy away from them. And brings to rule number 2, automate your wealth building. I started saving early at 18, and at that time I invested in the MDAX, and if we look back at the chart now, that wasn't necessarily the best, as we can clearly see here. But still, the savings plan has created a significantly important habit for me, which is regular saving. That's not a given. I don't just pay my bills for the phone, internet, and rent on the first of the month, but I also pay myself, and that's a must. Just like the rent has to be paid, you also in fact need to pay yourself. If you receive your salary, for example, on the first of the month, then your savings plan should ideally withdraw your savings rate from your account close to that date, so that the money is simply gone. You absolutely shouldn't even be tempted to spend that money on anything other than investing. Instead, you can pretty much forget about it. And if there's still something left at the end of the month, invest that again. If you're not saving for a vacation or a larger purchase, then just set that money aside for that purpose. That's how your snowball keeps getting bigger and undoubtedly rolls down the hill faster and faster, as Warren Buffett would say. And the goal is really to make that snowball as big as possible at the beginning. And yes, indeed, that only works with relatively regular or just regular and relatively high contributions. Focus on indeed earning good money and don't make investing too complicated. Many investors want to practice market timing. I am sometimes definitely tempted, yes, but in the end it is much more beneficial to absolutely invest a lot more money and consistently keep the deposit high and then simply invest the money regularly, ultimately instead of waiting for the right time. I prefer to use ETFs for that, just like many other investors do, but you can just as well use individual stocks. ETFs have the advantage of being efficient and allowing you to capture market returns, which are hard to beat. And for advanced investors who invest a bit more each month, Freedom 24 is suitable because it offers more trading venues than many other brokers. And with high investment volumes, you also have lower costs, since even free savings plans with German brokers naturally have spreads. A user on Reddit noted, for example, how his savings plan for DHL at Trade Republic, which is also not exactly an exotic stock, cost him a 1.5% spread, as you can clearly see from the difference between the bid price and the executed price of the savings plan. If you invest €500 monthly, that's already a €7.50 price difference that you're paying. Freedom24 does not have a savings plan per se, but if you buy the same ETF, you pay a fixed €2 plus 2 euro cents per ETF share, such as the iShare Score MSCI World. It costs €96, and yes, with that you can buy like 4 shares. With a savings amount of €500, that means costs of €2.08, which is about half of the Trade Republic savings plan. And here, when I bought €1,742 of exactly this iShares Core MSCI World, my costs were only marginally higher at €2.38. That's why I've switched to doing my larger regular investments manually, like my own savings plans that I have to execute, since the habit is already ingrained in me. This way, I save approximately €25 every single month compared to the savings plan with a 1.5% spread on that amount. And that's quite a lot. Not to mention the high bonuses of 79 up to €529 that are currently being offered by Freedom24 when you invest here. You'll find all the other information in this video and also in the description below. Rule number 3, don't gamble but invest. In other words, perhaps don't put everything on red or just on a single investment. This year at the Invest Fair, a few Bitcoin YouTubers asked me why I don't invest everything, such as in Bitcoin, because that would bring the best return. And the answer is simple: never put everything on one card. I didn't work so hard and put in so much effort all those years to fully and completely expose my fate, my wealth, to a digital cryptocurrency whose performance I have no control over. So many investors like to invest in ETFs because it allows for super cheap and broad diversification, and only investing in one asset class is indeed actually the opposite. That's a huge concentration risk. I'm not against having a share of crypto in your portfolio. I have one too. But cryptocurrency or whatever else should never be the only investment as a primary strategy, because there can also be very long phases, much longer than one might think today, in which Bitcoin or other individual assets underperform in the future. No one can predict the future with absolute certainty, so don't gamble but invest. And that also includes a certain level of diversification across multiple asset classes. If you want to learn more about it and you're not a subscriber yet, then hit that subscribe button and like so you don't miss any videos. Rule number 4, maximize your income. Yes, investing won't make you rich quickly, even though some coaches keep trying to sell that dream of quick prosperity. I recently made an interesting video about that. In almost all cases, it's just smoke and mirrors, I must say. If you really want to build more wealth or even become rich at a young age, you need to increase your income very quickly, such as you can do that in many ways. In this video, we've shown 25 different ways you can build a passive income in various methods. This ranges from investing in P2P loans to creating WordPress themes or travel guides to affiliate marketing, the t-shirt business, or taking stock photos with a drone, and much, much more. It's no shame if something doesn't work out. For example, I had my first side job, so to speak, my first self-employment, which wasn't successful. I recently sold insurance at Ergo. To be honest, I didn't sell much. But I learned so much more about sales and strategies, which really helped me a lot later on in the field of sales and marketing. Here's another thought. Take a look at what you're currently doing in your job. Can you also apply that to a side job, perhaps? The chances are good that the answer is yes. It doesn't matter if you work in controlling as a truck driver, ING. What's important is that you optimize to the fullest extent your income either in your job or outside of it, and ensure this not only helps you build your snowball at a quicker pace, but it can also protect you from having to take on debt if you lose your main job, and then of course depleting your capital and wealth, such as we don't want that either. So a side job or self-employment is in reality actually a kind of protection that many people don't think about right away. And that's indeed also a good transition to the last of my rules, which is to invest in other people's debts and not to incur any debts yourself. Nowadays with Instagram and co, in today's world, it's more straightforward and more accessible than ever to be tempted to emulate the lifestyle of friends or even complete strangers. In the past, you might have had a neighbor who eventually treated themselves to a new Mercedes. And then you might have been envious of that, wanting one too. But you also personally see that not everything is perfect with the neighbors, and you might perhaps overhear a fight or something similar. But on Instagram, that's not the case. Here, everyone only presents the sunny side of their life, and it can happen very quickly that you suddenly find yourself indeed willing to go into debt just to maintain a certain lifestyle and somehow show others that you can afford such things, even though you really can't. Klarna and Co. are very good at luring people into loans that are not declared as such when you get something new, such as some new clothes, new shoes, or whatever, and for example, like new shoes, etc. Since there are no interest charges when you pay in 3 installments, woe betide you if one payment is late, then there are more than 20% interest per year. In this video, I also explained why buy now, pay later makes you poor and me rich, as I invest in such loans. When I was in Mexico, I also visited several lending companies that offer short-term loans to consumers. Here, in front of the pension office, and believe me when I say it's definitely far better to be on the other side, rather than relying on high-interest loans here. And I also indeed had a student loan which had quite high interest rates at the KfW bank, as you can see here. And then in December of last year, I paid off the remaining balance of about 14,000 euros of my student loan in one go. And that was truly and honestly the best Christmas gift I could really give myself. Mathematically, it wasn't really necessary to pay off the loan completely so early, since first of all, it wasn't a lot of money. And secondly, I was earning way more than the 7% interest per year myself. That was basically a small leverage of debt for me. But as soon as the direct debit was processed and I was indeed officially free of debt, an incredible weight lifted off my shoulders. I was really happy about that. I knew I just didn't owe anyone anything anymore. And that has also meant that I have been able to live much more freely and, for example, take riskier things in my personal life because I don't have to pay any repayments or interest. And if you've ever had debt and paid it off, let me know in the comments below if you also felt a huge weight lift off your shoulders when you were finally free of it. That's how it was personally, ING. And with that, we come to an additional rule that I'm just learning myself, to be fair. As I go along, as I continue to learn, that's rule number 6. Enjoy life more when you've already accomplished a lot. If you successfully build wealth and do it consistently over the years, then you also deserve to enjoy some of the fruits of your labor right now. In the past, I was often very frugal and really treated myself to very little. I'm very frugal by nature, naturally. And because I learned it that way and because it was necessary back then, it was good in that situation. But it's also important not just to see higher numbers on the screen in your own portfolio, but to actually feel that in experiences from time to time. For example, I like to spend a few nice, enjoyable hours on the boat here in Cyprus with a few friends, and then have a great time going from one lagoon to the next and then doing a bit of snorkeling. So that's just wonderful. And I really enjoy that very consciously, and that's also important. That definitely motivates me to keep working hard so that I can afford such nice things in the future. They're not a given or anything, perhaps. So those were my rules. What do you think about my 5 rules for building wealth? If I had to start again from €0, let me know in the comments and give me a like and subscribe. If you liked it, go ahead and check out my €12,000 experience report on Freedom 24 right here. So I wish you a good return and see you next time.